method acting is bullshit.
Yeah, I saw that, but I can't remember who it was either.
It was, but it was like some big name actor, and I was like, oh, this is somebody that I would think would be into method acting, but they just came out straight out and said method acting.
Well, there's, method acting is not black and white. Because some people can do it and not be a jackass. Yeah. Obviously, certain people are being a fucking jackass.
Well, like, I get the method acting from the stance of getting into the character and, like, trying to understand their experience. So, for example, if you're method acting and you're a pilot, going and taking flying lessons, learning how to fly. Like, I get, but I think some actors just use it as an excuse to be douchebags.
Yeah.
Jared Leto.
I think they already are.
Well, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's
their nature.
Yeah, they call it method acting just as an excuse to be crappy people.
So the thing is that you almost have to do some method acting to be an actor. I mean, you have to kind of be in the head of that person. But these people that say they get into it and stay there for the entirety of the production or whatever, it's like,
Well, I mean, you can still do that, not be a jackass.
Yeah.
I mean,
when you're done acting, quit acting.
Also, find something else to blame your meth habit on.
Yeah,
okay, so you got addicted to pills while you were playing this role. I don't think it was because of the role.
Yeah, right.
I think you just had some pills.
Jesus. So, in other news, there's a new docuseries on an HBO Max.
Okay.
Based out of Arkansas.
Really?
And it takes place in the 70s. It's about a crop dusting pilot who, through different life choices, ends up faking his own death and then running drugs. And looks like, of course, I watched the first two. The third comes out Monday. And looks like he played a role in some very significant government shenanigans that took place back in the 80s.
Well, do you remember when the Clintons were in office, all the shit that we heard about them running stuff through MENA?
Yeah. The helicopters and the secret drugs and stuff.
Turns out it was actually Reagan running stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Go figure on that one. So I've heard about this. It was actually kind of news. So our buddy Bill Zanowitz from the Comic Book Bears was asking me about this the last time we were talking. And he was like, what is your proximity to Hazen, Arkansas? A small town, like on a blip on a map that no one knows.
It's a farming community.
Right, yeah. And I'm like, well, it just so happens, it's hilarious that my mother is one of the first grade teachers at Hazen Elementary. So I grew up in a town that is literally about 7 minutes down the road on Highway 70 in Arkansas. So it's hilarious that I grew up in this area, and I'd never even heard about this. Like, none of this, like, you would think this stuff would be like local legend and lore. But it just cracked me up because he was just like, what's your proximity to Hazen, Arkansas? And Bill's from Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Like there's zero reason for Bill Zanowitz to know what a Hazen, Arkansas is.
Yeah. Or anybody else.
Yeah, I'm just like, well, I mean, like, there's people in Arkansas who don't know what it is. And so I was just like, what? Like, have you heard this town? But it's, like I said, that's my home, like, the hometown next to my hometown. So that's Prairie County. That's where I grew up in. Those are my stomping grounds.
Yeah.
It's just weird, man. And now that HBO Max has their trailer or whatever for it, I'll turn on the TV and I'll go to watch let's be honest, I'm not turning it on. Roger's watching something. I just happen to be in the room and I'll just see the water tower from Hazen. Like, I've climbed up on that thing. Like, I was that kid. Like, I've been on top of that water tower.
It's eerie.
Oh, it's weird.
It's funny when they start interviewing the locals about this guy's story because he's local legend, Of course, they're interviewing this one old man and they're in his home. And bro doesn't even bother to put on a shirt for his interview.
Oh, this doesn't surprise me at all.
Like, come on, man!
It's kind of like the few
we have to feed the stereotypes.
It's kind of like the few blips I've caught of, like, the Tiger whatever the dude from the Tigers is, that, like,
Tiger King,
Joe Dirt dude.
The Tiger King.
Yeah, that guy. Like, when they the few glimpses I've got when they're interviewing them, I'm like, yeah, that tracks. Like, that seems very much.
Meth Tigers.
Yeah.
And,
But no, it's funny. So the only other, like, big time name I've ever heard mention a small town in Arkansas that I'm associated with, Lewis Black, who's a comedian, hilarious comedian. I love the guy.
Funny,
he used to tell a bit about these guys in Arkansas in Des Arc, which is the town I graduated from. that accidentally shot each other after going frog gigging. So I'll see if I can find the clip and send it to you. But yeah, it happened in Des Arc, Arkansas, and that's the town I graduated from because the school I went to consolidated, and so we all kind of scrambled. But it was hilarious, because I used to buy his albums. Like you did back in the day, and listen to them, and I was like, "Wait a minute, why is Lewis
I'm
black?"
pretty sure my graduating class is larger than the population of any of these towns we've talked about.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
I'm sure they have to be.
What was your graduating class?
About 400 people.
So Duval's Bluff, the entirety of the town was 700 people population back when I was there. It's less now. The graduating class I went with was 50 people. If I had stayed at the school I was, it would have been 19.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
We had 3 high schools in my town.
Yeah.
So
and you only had 400 people in your graduating class?
About 4 or 5, yeah.
Wow.
These are the adventures of small town Arkansas. This is what you get.
I don't know the exact number, but it seems like it was about that much.
I mean, I grew up in a small town, and I had about 300
you had
people.
one school, though.
I'm sorry?
You had one school.
One high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See, we had 3.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You should have had more people than that.
Yeah, maybe.
So you had 3, but you had 3 high schools, and your high school had 400 people. So the other ones would have as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
yeah.
So like 1,200 total.
Yeah.
Got it.
There was like
Okay.
12 to 1,500 probably.
See, I redeemed myself for me not being able to count to 6 earlier.
To being able to multiply by 3.
Yeah. Look at me. I'm going to graduate law school. Yay. Well, we did not come
it's
here.
not there yet. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Hey, look, I've still got time to fuck this up. But we did not come here to talk about this or, the fact that small town Arkansas, although I do appreciate Craig being the person from California who brought us culture. Thank you for that.
You're going to count on me to bring culture to this podcast? You're in trouble.
You enriched my life. I appreciate you. But we are the Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. I believe this is episode 225. I didn't look. I wasn't here last week, so my numbers
I
are
guessed
off.
because you put the number on the podcast.
I figure you guessed okay, but according to it, I am right. It's supposed to be 225. So go me.
That would be an annual or a anniversary edition of a comic book.
It would be. I feel like we should celebrate.
They
this.
would have celebrated the 5th year anniversary.
Charge an extra $1.
Yeah, feel free to. I'll drop the Cash App. I'll have to make us a Cash App.
us $1 each
and drop it in there. But I am, as usual, Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And I'm Craig Lance.
And we want to welcome you back to another fun-filled, excitable episode of the Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. I think you can tell it in our voices. We are glad to be together.
Yeah, we're glad to have Caleb back.
I am glad to be back.
It's it's one of those things that we just let Caleb run the show most of the time. Like he just kind of MCs it, and Matt and I chirp in. It's a little bit harder when you're having to come up with the conversation points, and the shows when I run them end up being about half the time is when Caleb runs them.
Well, but I mean, you're also taking out 1/3 of the voices, right? So I mean,
well, in fairness, you probably talk quite a bit more than us too.
Well,
when you're talking about your stuff.
I
don't mean that in a negative way.
No, you do.
Just
it's okay.
Expand more on. No, you just expound more on whatever it is you're speaking about. When Matt and I are like, yeah, it was a good book. It's got nice art. The story is this and
Pretty colors.
Pretty colors, yeah.
That's
coming from Matt. He only sees like 2 colors.
That's right. So it's easy.
Broad range. It's that English degree kicking in. I do want to say that as we're recording this, I'm glad that we're all actually sitting here because it is Easter Sunday. So I want to thank you gentlemen for taking time out of your holiday to come here and do this. It's this to me is better than an Easter basket. But for those of you who celebrate Passover or the other holidays associated with this weekend, hope you have a fantastic weekend.
I don't know any of the others either.
Yeah, right.
So, little funny story about this. I used to work with this guy that, not to get off on some religious tangent, but he was in one of the, I don't know, a denomination of Christianity, but they only practiced Jewish holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And Easter was not a holiday that they practiced because he used to tell me it was in celebration of the East Star God.
Ah.
I'm like, you can't just say it's this pagan celebration like everybody else on the planet.
The East Star God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, well, that doesn't translate from you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back. There was a god. I don't know if it was the East Star god, but his name was Ishtar. Like that's where it comes from.
People do all sorts of funny things and stretch things to do the mental gymnastics in their brain. But every time I hear Easter, it makes me think of that, and I chuckle a little.
Hey,
I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Rabbits and necromancy. I'm just all about it. However you celebrate it, have fun.
Necromancy.
Easter just got more metal,
right? Slayer playing in the background. Rain and Blood comes on. I saw a meme this past weekend. It had a guy in a bunny suit holding a rag over a kid's mouth, and it said, "Sorry, I'm the ether bunny." It made me laugh. Memes and everything aside, welcome back to myself and to everybody else, and we hope you kick back, relax, and enjoy some comic talk. So let's actually kick that comic talk off the way that we are wont to do, by dropping a little short stack on you, just like pancakes. Tell me some good, sweet stuff that you read this week.
So I read from the Sandman universe, Nightmare Country, and this is let me tell you who's on it first. Of course, it's DC. It's James Tynion IV, Leandro Esterin, Yannick Paquette, Patricia Del Paco, and Nathan Fairbairn. This is a story about the Corinthian from the Sandman universe. And if you don't know who the Corinthian is, he's literally nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
He is a nightmare for serial killers. And he's got where his eye sockets are, he has teeth, and he hunts down people and kills them whenever he happens to escape Dream, the land of Dream. He will sneak out and eat people's eyeballs and kill them. Well, in this story, he's been haunting this one guy for a while in his dreams, and this guy hooks up with a painter who has painted a bunch of pictures where all the people have teeth for eyes. And so, of course, he's become infatuated with her, and we'll find out what happens there.
You think he gets charged extra at the dentist?
He's a nightmare. He doesn't have hygiene and dentistry and things like this.
It's no excuse.
If his teeth fall out, he just gets new ones. My second book is A Town Called Terror, #1 from Image Comics. And this is Steve Niles and Caleb's absolute favorite artist in the world, Simon Kudaransky.
Oh.
This is a wonderful book.
Is it?
Yeah, and the art on it is so much better than you would believe until you get to a couple of panels that are like, oh, well, there's Simon. But some of the art in this book is absolutely will blow your socks off.
Okay.
I had to double check a couple of times, make sure who the artist was on it. Really good, solid. There are, again, it's a supernatural story. Starts off with a guy has just died, and all of a sudden his head tells the butler to put his head, attach my head first next time. And so the butler apologizes, puts the head back on, the guy stands back up. And then it switches to a couple that have just finished coitus.
Yeah.
And some men break in and shoot a sleeping dart into the woman and drag off the guy. And he goes, I guess the asshole wants to see me again. Turns out he's the son of the guy that died. And he's been on the run from the father for a while. So we'll find out where it's going.
I'm going to have to revisit the way I think about Kudaransky, though, because you are right. He has grown since the Kudaransky that I have a lot of distaste for.
I would suggest at least flipping through this book and looking at the art on it.
I'll check it out. He's doing the art on Nita Hall's Nightmare blog, too, which is the offshoot of the vampire book that of course, I wasn't thinking about it right now, so I don't know the name of it.
So, it's an interesting book. It's it is what it is. My last book on my short stack is Flashpoint Beyond Zero. If you remember last week, I talked about the Batman Flashpoint. Well, this picks up kind of where that ends, but the world's been reset. Except Thomas Wayne still exists, and he doesn't understand why no one understands that the world's messed up. So what's happened is Darkseid has messed up the alternate universe that Flash decreated when he reversed Flashpoint. And so Thomas Wayne still exists in this world. Bruce is still dead. It's still the alternate Flashpoint universe. Atlantis has taken over the Amazons. Thomas is... Did I say Bruce? Thomas is on his way to... He's trying to get things straightened out. So he goes to Barry and tries to reverse... Because Barry came to him in the original Flashpoint and said, hey, I screwed this up. Well, because he knows and Barry doesn't, he goes to Barry and says, hey, you got to fix this. And Barry's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't have any powers, and I'm going to call the police on you. And so, because he doesn't have time for Barry to figure it out, he takes Barry, drugs him, takes him to the top of the tower in the middle of a storm, and puts the chemicals all around him so that he'll get struck by lightning and become the Flash. Except that the chemicals get destroyed by one of the Atlanteans. And so when Barry gets struck by lightning, he just becomes barbecued Barry.
Jesus.
So, yeah, it's an interesting world. I would like to see them keep playing in a little bit, because even though it's an alternate world, it's good. It's written by Jeff Johns, and it's got Marionette and Mime in it, which is the first time we've seen them in a bit.
Ooh, nice.
So it's some of the most compelling writing I've seen. I forgot to say who the artist was. Lizardo Riso.
Eduardo Riso.
Eduardo Riso, I'm sorry.
It's weird seeing him on a mainstream book after seeing him in Moonshine for so long.
Yeah.
It's weird to see that, but gosh dang, it's good. Man.
So, yeah, the art is outstanding in this book. Really fun. It's outside of main continuity, but I don't mind it because it's tied to the other stuff we've seen that ties into main continuity.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that, hey, we thought we fixed this, but it did fix it for the main universe, but that spiral universe is still going. And it's even within that, some things have changed. So.
I love when they do that because it allows them to just go nuts with it. So,
so Thomas Wayne, knowing he's a flawed Batman and he doesn't have the limits that Bruce has.
Yeah.
In this, he's being, I'm not going to say blackmailed, but Harvey Dent is threatening to press charges against him for killing Joe Chill.
Okay.
If he won't go talk to Gilda Dent, who's in Arkham, and will only talk to Thomas, but Thomas is trying to solve the other problem, so he won't go. So Harvey Dent shows up to arrest Thomas, and an Atlantean kills him too.
Interesting.
So Aquaman knows that Aquaman's playing another side of this.
Yeah.
And so when Harvey Dent gets killed, for whatever reason, he brought his son with him to arrest Thomas. So his son sees him die. So, of course, now Thomas is taking Harvey Dent's son in as his ward.
Okay. Yeah, I need to pick this up. And I should have picked it up based off of Riso alone.
Man, so it looks amazing.
Yeah, the art in it is absolutely stunning.
I will say, couple weeks ago, they put out Flashpoint Zero or whatever, which was a recreation, and you get to see Thomas Wayne beat Joe Chill to death, which is always nice.
Yeah, I actually talked about that book last week, and it was Martha's actually the Joker and all of these things, but which made Matt roll his eyes quite a bit, but it was a solid story, and this kind of picks up from that. The only thing I don't understand is why is it Flashpoint Zero? Because just have it be issue number 1. Zero should be a prologue.
Yeah, which who knows what they're going to do with it?
Word, isn't it? It's eulogy, but prologue.
Eulogy.
That's eulogy is something you say.
I know, but the
epilogue is the word.
Epilogue.
Yeah, epilogue is what you're looking for.
All right.
I just real quick, Philadelphia is the book I was thinking about with the vampires that Nita Hall spun out on that Kudaransky's doing the art on now. And hey, I like it. So, I'm stepping on my own toes here. You let people
It happens
grow.
sometimes. Yep. I went forever disliking certain artists, and then they ended up being much better They were ahead of the time and
let
what they were
them
doing.
grow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it's that they were ahead of the time. Like, I still think I was right in my assessment of the art then, but you let them grow.
I'm talking about that other particular artist. Gotcha. Yes, yeah, it's a... Kudaransky's gotten better, in my opinion, based on the art in this book. And I haven't read anything he's been on in a while. But
nice.
Yeah.
Well, what you read this week, Matt?
Boy, oh boy. I
can't wait to
I went dollar bin diving.
Did you?
While I was out of town and found some gems.
Nice.
So
where'd you go? First of all, shout out the shop.
It was it's a corporate chain. I frankly don't want to plug.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I know which one it was. You were in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
I know exactly which one it was.
And
I used to get my books from there.
did you?
Yeah.
So I went in and picked through their dollar bins, and they had some interesting stuff in there. Really surprised me. A lot of early 90s stuff that most shops won't even buy anymore. So, number one on my short stack is from Triumphant Comics.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah,
Caleb?
they're still
That's
not
Caleb.
around.
Yeah. The face of Caleb makes. From 1993. This is Triumphant Unleashed. And the reason I bought this is for this disgusting bit. Up on the top, there's a banner. The collectors is underlined. So make sure you note it as collectors. Universe. This is number 42,616
They put the
of
number
80,000.
Oh.
They put the print run on there, and they put the number of the comic on there. I remember this bit that they were doing for a while.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible.
These people are whores.
Well, I mean, speculators going to speculate.
And I think, if I'm not wrong, doesn't that say a free comic? That's issue 0?
Yeah,
and
numbers
it's free.
Yeah, free number 0.
So get that free collector's issue.
The art in the book is actually pretty good. It's got a very much independent comic feel to it.
Yeah.
But the story, I don't know what the fuck this comic is about. So, I don't know, man. Takes
For
place,
$1 though, right?
Yeah, it takes place on another world, and it's triumphant. So, also, on my short stack from Image is Farmhand number 16.
I did not get to this book yet, but
You didn't?
no, but go ahead. I bought it. I just haven't read it yet.
Written, drawn, and created by Rob Guillory. Colors by Jean-Francois Billio. Probably pronounced that wrong. Reading this, it occurred to me, this book has been on a 2-year hiatus.
It's been a while.
I didn't realize it'd been that long.
I didn't realize it had either, but it's been a minute.
He didn't plan on a 2-year hiatus. And when I read the back matter, he's talking about that, and I'm like, oh yeah, he talked about taking off 6 months. Well, then the pandemic happened, and things went askew. So, yeah.
He is such a talented man,
Yeah.
both in his writing ability and in his artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Has Jean-Francois Bellieu always done the colors
No.
on this?
No.
So Jean-Francois Bellieu, that is Scotty Young's colorist, like almost exclusively, has done everything that Scotty Young has drawn for a long, long time. I've never seen him color anybody else. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Rob quit coloring his own stuff. He just because he couldn't keep up with the schedule, so we brought in a colorist at some point.
He picked a good one.
Yeah. So, and also, there's only 10 issues left in this run.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he says he's always planned the run to end at 26. He's always known the end, so he still plans on sticking to that.
Okay.
So,
I like when they plan out the book, they know when it's going to end, they stick to it instead of going,
Stretching
hey,
it
this
out.
is making money.
Yeah.
Let's make it linger for a year longer than it needs to.
Yeah. Also on my short stack, I picked up an issue of G.I. Joe, a real American hero, to remind the kids.
He is a real American hero.
Unmaskings is the subtitle of this particular issue. This is number 55. This one came out in 1987. This is when Larry Hama was still writing
I was
it.
going to say it's probably a Hama.
Oh, yeah. Well, Larry Hama is the one that made G.I. Joe worth reading.
Right.
Pencils are Rod Willingham. Inks are Andy Muschieski or something like that. Colors are George Roussos. So the story here, the Cobra Commander and Destro were trying to invade/destroy G.I. Joe headquarters. G.I. Joe personnel basically demolished their own headquarters to stop it from falling into their hands and escaped. So we pick up where Deathstroke and Cobra Commander are trapped in the rubble trying to find a way out. Okay. So they're trying to find their way out. Meanwhile, back at Cobra Command, Serpentor and the likes are trying to figure out what to do because they think these two are dead. But here's where things get noteworthy. Okay.
And he literally means noteworthy. My man has flagged pages in his book as if this was a studied tome.
So they figure out how to tunnel their way out. They tunnel their way out into a shopping mall. Look it up, kids. Yeah. Within said shopping mall is a fashion shop. So
it's one of those places where people shoot each other nowadays.
Yes. Yeah. Or you go to.
Am I wrong?
If they're not, when they're not shooting each other, you go there to be depressed.
Or you can just buy a whole one on the courthouse steps for like $150,000.
And so, famously, these are two characters that we never see their faces. As a reminder, well, they go into said fashion shop because they now have got to make their way back to Cobra Command. They can't walk around as they are; they'll be easily spotted. So they're donning disguises. So each one of them takes off their mask, and they're dressing in just the style at the time, the loud 80s, say, sports jacket and jogging pants.
Members only jacket.
And
and
nice. Whatnot. So, but then they start talking trash to each other about the way they look. And
80s comics.
Go full-blown Mean Girls.
Cobra Commander is... Cobra Commander is, they're sniping back at each other, and he says to Destro, "Fashion snobbery from someone who still wears a gold chain and open shirt." Look it up, kids.
Hey, they don't have to. It's back, man. That's been recycled.
So, but the next thing I want to mention, and this was even better to me. So they make their way out, and next scene is they're driving down the street in a yellow Corvette, and Destro says to Cobra Commander, "I had no idea that hot wiring cars was one of your many talents, Cobra Commander." His response, "I used to be a used car dealer, Destro." You could say that forming Cobra was a step towards honesty for me.
Someone wronged Larry Hama.
Oh my God. First of all, Cobra Commander selling cars.
Exactly.
I want a comic book that has that.
Please.
I need you to hang on. I'm going to put that on our Instagram here in just a second.
I mean,
that is amazing.
That was a panel that I never would have predicted when I picked up this comic book.
That is amazing.
That is absolutely.
I need to take a week off more often. You bitches are chatty today. I like this. This is nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Just step towards honesty.
Yeah.
Well, so I did not go back issue diving this week, but I did read some good stuff.
You can only pick 3.
I am only going to pick for some reason. I ended up having 6 comics with me today instead of 5.
Whoops.
I don't get it. The first one, I think, I don't know if you guys are reading this or not, but She-Hulk #3. This is by Rainbow Rowell, Roge Antonio, Luca Mariesca, and Rico Renzi. Dude, I'm loving this story.
I'm hearing really good things about it. I'm not reading it, but
everything about it, from just the tone, the visuals. They brought back Jack of Hearts, who, as a dude who was steeped in that Busiek Avengers run, I love that character. He doesn't know what's going on. The fun thing about it is like now he's human. Beforehand, where he didn't need to eat or sleep or digest food, now he has to, he discovers the beauty of pizza because he needs to ingest food. And he figures out that he has to shit. So it's a whole new process for him. And She-Hulk, they're living in one of Janet Van Dyne's, penthouse lofts because she's letting She-Hulk borrow it while she gets back on her feet. And so it's just showing him, he's just laying on the couch trying to figure out how to be a person. And she is just, it's great. So I'm really enjoying this. It's super fun. It's just lighthearted. It is genuinely fun. It's a fun comic. So not such a fun comic, but a good comic nonetheless. One that has kept me on my toes for the 7 issues is The Last Book You'll Ever Read by a dude that I'm just a huge fan of and have been since I've discovered him on Harrow
I'll tell
County.
you as soon as he opens the
Yeah,
book.
it's well, no, it's I know Cullen's name, so it's Cullen Bunn. The artist is Layla Leitz. Vladimir Popov does the colors, and Jim Campbell does the letters. I've talked about this before. So essentially, your main character, she writes this book called Seder that apparently ushers in the end of the world. This is the 7th. Like I think it's the next to the last issue. The world has gone to shit. Everybody's insane. They're eating each other, and her and this bodyguard are just trying to like run around and find, survival. And figure out what's happening and why people are going crazy and society's ended. They've just about decided that society was going to end anyway, and so they just happen to be the vehicle through which this happened. But society's now breaking off into like little sub-tribes of people who want to worship the god and people who are just hedonistic. And so
there's
now,
no subtext to that, how people blame pop culture for bad things
I love
happening,
that
right?
Cullen. I love that Cullen. There's one panel where somebody's eating a moose that they have tackled, and like they've just taken it down.
Tackled a moose. How big is this person?
This, like no, they were gusto. That person was motivated.
I mean,
but
moose are huge.
Yeah.
The end of it, the lines are really
Hulk?
really great. So they're now just trying to figure out where to go, and they're having this conversation. And she said, what do you think that the wilding, who is like what's causing this, you think that they might listen to me, the author says. Or bodyguard, the guy she's traveling with, says, do you think God was happy with the way that the Bible turned out? Of course he's going to talk to you. He's got somebody going with you. And she says, well, let's go ask him. So they're getting ready to go jump up and like go talk to the wilding personified, which is a very cool concept. Again, fun, rabid, rampant comic book, but Cullen is playing with some higher, some elevated themes here, and I really appreciate
Keeping
it.
track of how many books he's talked about.
That's two. And then the last one, the ultimate one on my short list, comes from Aftershock Comics, which is a publisher that we're going to get to a little bit more from here in a little bit. This is called The Ocean Will Take Us. It's by Rich Duick and Carlos Oliveras. I don't know why I picked this book up. I don't remember. It was in my pack. I didn't grab it off the shelf, but apparently I signed on to this, and I'm glad I did. I just don't remember doing it. So this story has a very it's got very manga-esque sensibilities in the way that it's told. It takes place at a high school. You've got this kid who's from Hawaii who comes into the new high school. He's a strong swimmer. But there's something going on. He wants to get on the swim team, and there's something going on with the swim team here. There's been a kid recently disappeared. There's something murking in the water that like has these black tentacles that will reach up and like snag people. But the swim team, the captain, the bully, he's kind of this stereotypical douchebag, high schooler. Like the swim team has found a way to like capture its essence, and like they're using it as a drug to give them like extra powers. So they, like, I don't know if they've like bottled a demon or what here, but it's very interesting. The new kid on the block is going to team up with the sibling of a high schooler that was killed to try to like solve this mystery. Fun. It's got really, really cool art. Again, like this is an American comic, but has very, very, very manga-esque like shoujo sensibilities in the way that it works. So it's cool to see that branch over. And the art kind of has like a Bratz feel to it, if that makes sense. People who know what that is. So yeah, it was cool. I'm gonna keep on it and check it out.
I raised girls during the years of Bratz.
Yeah, you did. Are you okay? We need to lay you on the couch and talk about
it's
this.
all good.
Well, all right, good stuff all around. I really love that, and Craig and I were talking about this earlier. I love that we don't talk about this before the show. Like, I don't tell you guys what I'm going to talk about. You don't tell me, other than the book that we roundtable. But we very rarely have much crossover, and I think it just shows the versatility and the diversity of the books we read. Like whether Matt's talking about back issues or newer stuff, or Craig's going just nuts with the stuff he reads. It's fun, and so I really appreciate that, just the breadth of stuff that we read, and just that goes to show you what comics as a medium can do. It never ceases to make me happy, because I'm a nerd like that. So, also speaking of being a nerd, you know what nerds love? Kaiju, big monsters.
It's true.
That destroy things, and
I got to
also
work on my Segway game.
Also
when
thievery.
He's not here.
You gotta. I mean, to be fair, have you heard some of my segues?
The way we segue when you're not here is we go transition
to turn page. Yeah. Next topic. I like Matt's segue because Matt's about as subtle as a sledgehammer. He'll just be like, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
I'm done.
We've moved on. We got together this week. There were some stuff that came out obviously this week that we waffled over, getting to talk about on the show. But ultimately we landed on, let's step outside of the mainstream a little bit. I feel like we've talked about a lot of DC lately. We've talked about a good bit of Marvel lately. There's a lot of stuff on the shelf. And so a book came out this week that I don't think any of us knew a whole lot about. It wasn't on my pull list, but it's, I don't know if it was any on your pull list, but it comes from Aftershock Comics. Remember earlier when I told you we would get there? Well, now we're here. The book is called Kaiju Score, Steal from the Gods. This is by James Patrick, Rim Brew, with Dave Sharp doing the letters. Before we get into the book, and actually before I get you guys to say what you like, whether you like the book or not, or just kind of a base level, the thing I love about Aftershock Comics is if you turn to the very last pages, it gives you like a little bio for the creators. Which is helpful for us as podcasters to know who these people are and kind of what they've done before. For example, James Patrick, he's worked on a lot of DC stuff like Batman, Harley Quinn. He did some stuff for Kevin Smith. Rim Brew has done, the End Times of Bram. There's a ton of stuff. But Dave Sharp, who's a fairly famous colorist, if I look at my spreadsheet for the year, Dave Sharp just continues to pop up. I had no idea Dave Sharp looked like the most metal motherfucker to ever come out of a Pantera concert in history. The dude just looks like he, is a Texas Death Ride. He's a bigger dude with a cowboy hat playing a bass guitar in the image. This is not what I expected from Dave Sharp.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't expect that in any given comic creator, I don't think.
But the little thumbnail they give him, I'm like, oh, this dude is hard.
Yeah.
Can you see that guy, putting down his bass and picking up a coloring book? It's fun stuff.
And I think it's totally cool.
I'd love it. No, yeah. This I want to have a beer with that guy. So, all right, let's talk about Kaiju Score, Steal from the Gods. Before we get into the substance of the book, how did it treat you guys? Give me the 30,000-foot view, as if you were a drug smuggler from Hazen in a crop duster.
Oh, I like the book. I thought it was well done. Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a heist book.
Yeah.
Yeah. From that standpoint, I was in.
I went in with really low expectations, and sometimes that's when you have the most fun from a book, because I was giddy about this. Yeah, this is on my pull list now. I will continue with this story, and was totally not expecting to say that. Because honestly, even though it's called Kaiju Score, was kind of shocked. Kaiju don't play just a huge, they play a role in the book, but they are not front and center.
In the here in the future, they're going to play a role in the.
We're gonna definitely see them, but in this setup issue, they've just kind of talked about. They're not front and center of the book. It is, like you said, it is a heist book, and I was about it.
One thing I really like about the book, which, this may be premature to talk about, but the fact that they just assume that kaiju exist in this world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go into a bunch of backstories about it.
Well, there was this is volume 2. So
really?
Yeah, this is volume 2. So we're picking up.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that at all. That's so I need to go back and figure out where this is coming from to tell you.
Aftershock Comics.
Well, right. Womp womp, sad trombone. No, I didn't get that this was the second issue, so I'm curious to see how the first one
second volume.
Right. Words, they're important. They matter. I don't know them. I'm gonna sit here and drink more of the coffee Matt made me. So the book is like I said, I thought this book was really cool. So the book takes place in a world that's kind of like ours, but as you might imagine, because you don't look out your window and see kaiju tromping by, it's a little bit different than ours. So you've got this main character who is she runs a crew. She runs her crew of thieves, and they've done all different sorts of things in the past, from big jobs to small jobs. They mostly like to find that sweet spot right in the middle, like say, robbing a airplane or something like that. Or a train, where they will get all the money, they'll get everything they need, and at the last minute, jump out with parachutes and land safely on the ground and get away. That's kind of what they want to do, but that hasn't always been the case. And I would imagine, since now that we know this is a volume 2, the references to what happened in quote unquote Oklahoma is probably what takes place in Volume 1, where they got involved with a heist and got way over their heads. A shit puddle, if you will. Yeah. Which I cracked up every time I saw that. So in this story, they have just finished up with the heist, right? The crew has landed. They had to pull an audible for a second, and they went to a different collection point to all get this, to get everything sorted out, get their money, and to figure out what's going on. But Michelle, who is the leader of this group, everybody's excited except for her. And when they all kind of figure out that she's not happy about it, even though they've just landed this big score, they kind of go to her, and ask her what's going on. She's like, well, we've still got work to do. She pulls out her pistol and she ankles a dude, like just puts a bullet right through motherfucker's Achilles heel. And everybody's like, whoa, what are you doing? And it turns out she has figured out that this guy in particular has ratted them out. He is working with somebody that is
their competition.
His name is, competition / a threat, right? Like it's this guy named Carlito who also runs he has his way. He also runs a drug ring or something. And you get that he's a gangster, either a cartel boss, a mob boss, something that wasn't supposed to get in the way. Like they're supposed to work correctly, to like work in tandem together, but something's happened in the past. Now they're not happy with each other. So she goes, like she deals with him, just brains him real quick and gets that issue out of the way. And then they go about their business. They go home. And the partner, the guy that she's working with and the guy that she's worked with for a long time, comes in, he's apologizing. He's like, hey, I'm sorry I brought him in. Obviously I fucked this up. I hope you don't hold it against me. And she's like, dude, mistakes happen. You didn't know about this. We got our score. We got our loot. Just don't worry about it. And she jumps in her Ferrari, flips off a few people who are driving by and then goes on with her life. When she gets to her house, by the way, I'm always curious on how these folks pay their taxes, because for somebody who deals things,
stop it.
Like she gets to her McMansion, rolls in, and the lights are off and everything, and she's ready to go relax and just end her day, have a nice martini or something. And as she comes into her darkened, shadowed living room, gets ready to pop the lights on, there are these four figures who are just chilling in her house, like they're not supposed to be there. Whoa. Like, and she is not happy about this intrusion at all. And so she, does the whole, what the fuck are you doing? Who the fuck are you thing? And they proceed to tell her, hey, we're, this old guy who's sitting in a chair, his name is Xavier. And he's like, I've got a proposition for you. I've got a job. And she's just like, well, again, let me return back to my question. Why are you in my house? And he's like, hey, we know you're dangerous, but don't get too feisty. We broke in here. We stuffed the gardener in the closet. And about this time, you see a little red dot appear on the old man's head, and she kind of smirks, and she's like, "Oh, you put my gardener in the closet, huh? Well, that's him up there with a sniper rifle. This dude doesn't stay in one spot too long, so you need to be real sure with your words, and real quick to let me know again, why are you in my house?" And so the old man proceeds to explain some history. Again, as Craig said earlier, in this world, kaiju are at least common, or at least a type of kaiju. The way that they talk about them are as if they're some, not Godzilla-sized creatures, at least in the ones that they're familiar with, but they're smaller scale, right? Like, so we don't know how big they are, but these are not like towering monoliths of dragons, but they're, the size of elephants or something. Like, you can just, not unfuckwittable, but just not also gonna crash into cities. But the way he starts telling her some history, it's like, hey, back in the day, we found this lore, and there were these creatures that you would think of as we think of kaiju. They're just mountainous, huge, and there were two of them. Didn't really particularly care for each other. Got in a fight. Ended up just beating the shit out of each other, swallowing a bunch of Spanish ships with some gold coins in them. That's just in their gullet somewhere, and then they walked up to Russia, took an ice bath, and now they're just hibernating. And they've got all of this gold coin, the Spanish coins, which have since been melted down, so they're extra rare, just chilling like in their intestines. And we would like to get that because it's valuable, and we would like to continue to be rich. Makes sense, right? Like, I respect that. And so this is going to be a giant score, and they believe, based on reputation, that she and her crew are the only ones who can pull this heist off. But again, she's learned some lessons in the past, and she's like, oh, yeah, you're basing this off of Oklahoma, but here's the thing about people who have stepped in shit puddles. It doesn't make them an expert in shit puddle stepping. It means they get really good at not stepping in them again. And this smells a lot like a shit puddle. I don't want this. I don't want to do this. You need to get out of my house. We're just done. And so they leave, relatively unconvinced, also under threat of bullet to the brain, because the gardener's on the roof still with his sniper rifle. The next day, as they're talking about things, they go, I should say the next day, a couple of weeks, they pulled off another job. Again, her buddy who brought in the rat from the last job, apparently he's jacked up something a little bit. Again, there was a hostage that he didn't tie the knot right. Something shady with this guy, it seems like. I can't wait to see what's going on down the road with him, but he keeps making little simple mistakes, stuff, it's adding up. I think they're making a point of that. But he's apologizing profusely again, and she's just like, dude, I don't care. We've always been a crew. I forgive you, whatever, you're good at your job. She jumps in her Ferrari and just goes about her business. When she notices one of those creepy white vans, not the kind that I drive around in to give out clothes, but the kind that drives around and they pick up people's kids and shoot people, it is following her, and they roll up beside her and proceed to unload. And all of a sudden her phone rings. It's our homeboy Carlito, the dude who's who snitched she brained earlier in the film, or in the book.
In the film.
Yeah, he's not happy with her, and he's just proceeding to tell her that she's about to die and this is just business and not to take it hard, but it's not a dick, it's a joke. Don't take it so hard, but you have to die now. And she's unpersuaded by his offer to end her, and she just proceeds to do her really talented spy stuff and get out of an untenable situation in which she should have died. Basically, she rams a van with her Ferrari and just swan dives off of a bridge. She is a little worse for the wear. She's brained up and everything. She's scuffed up, not doing great, but now she's pissed. And at the end of the book, she's sitting there with her gardener getting patched up, calling the old man who found his way into her house, saying, hey, I will take your job, but I'm going to need some front money first because I got some business to deal with. So we've got a lot on the plate here. For a first issue that moved very fast and was very cohesive, there are a lot of moving parts to this, I think. And I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed how this kicked off, because now we not only have a spy adventure, we've got a heist story, we've got assassinations attempts, and we're going to have kaiju. There's a lot.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, right.
For those of you that watch Rick and Morty.
I'm down. This had all of the, I like heist books. I love these spy stories, whether or not it's stuff that we've seen before, like Mind Management, which has these weird aspects to it, but ultimately is a heist book, or whether it's, anything by some of the greats that you just get these really fun, almost like detective stories, but they're bad guy detective stories. It had those sensibilities about it, I think. And for a writer that I'm not familiar with, I thought it was really well done.
So, did you guys read the entries into the Promise Notebook by any chance?
No, huh?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, one of the normal kaijus had a baby, and they named it Precious. And at one point, she's talking about how lame the media is for promoting all of this and everything, but yet she bought a figure of it because it's super cute. But then Precious eats a boat, as she says, like it was a hot dog. And that was the end of them calling it Precious. They renamed it.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. So, and Precious is a giant shark kaiju, maybe, with tusks.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Promise Notebook stuff's pretty neat, because within the story she has a Promise Notebook that she keeps writing.
It's like a journal.
Yeah, it's a journal where she makes promises to herself that, okay, this is the last time I'm doing this, but she continually breaks the promises.
Yeah.
So she ends up lighting the Promise Journal on fire and destroying it within the story. So in this, you actually get some of the entries she made into it.
I used to read a ton of the back matter of these books, and I love that you guys still do, because I'm ready
I'll
for
confess, mostly I don't. I just happened to notice what that one was. And I'm
Really?
like, that looks interesting, so I read it.
Well, it's one of those things. I'm ready for the world to slow down a little bit because I don't do that anymore because I find myself pressed for time and I don't get to sit back and enjoy the back matter. And I really do enjoy the insight that we get to the creation of these books and just the world around them. Because, like you said,
something like this adds to the character depth.
Yeah.
Because it shows you that the authors, whether it's just the writer or the creative team in general, has a backstory for this character that you may or may not know.
Yeah.
it gives you so much texture to the world that these...
It's like the people that read The Watchmen and don't read the prose in it.
Yeah. I mean, the same thing with the X-Men, though, and that's... Like the X books, like you don't have to read the text and stuff in the X-Men books, but it gives you so much insight into what's happening. And at least in the stuff that Hickman wrote, I think some of the stuff that the other creators have done, you can give or take it. But if you read the ones that Hickman wrote, he gives you puzzle pieces to his grand design.
I don't ever recommend skipping anything Hickman ever writes in one of his books
because
you will be missing something later.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just so it is fun, and this is a really good example of why you do that. So I did want to, as I was reading this, it's always one of those things with a book that you haven't read before. Like you start wondering, like, have I seen this before? What does this remind me of? The way that the writing is in this book, it really did. Like, it's not as good. I'm not making a 1-to-1 comparison, but it reminded me, at least in his pacing and in some of the vernacular, it reminded me of Darwin Cook. Like, it had that cartoonish adventure feel to a heist book. Like, there were... I think that Darwin
part of that's the art in this. It gives it a cartoonish feel.
Very,
for sure.
Very Rob Guillory.
That's exactly what I thought of. I knew that you guys were at least going to like the visuals because I was like, this feels like Chew. Like, this feels like Farmhand.
Yeah.
It's just really, really fun. The only thing... I did notice, like, there's this one panel where she's smoking a cigarette. The smoke is the same wisp and texture as the old man's hair. Like, I had to look, I was like, why is this dude's like quaff like coming over into the scene? But it wasn't, it was her smoke. But I also really enjoyed the way that the artist, that Rembrew switched up styles. Because you don't see that. You're starting to see that more and more, but normally an artist has their style and they carry that style throughout the book. On these scenes where she's talking about writing in her journal as a child and then talking about the lore of the kaiju, he switches over to a whole different, like, the line is different. The way that
his art for the kaijus is different than the rest of the book.
It almost looks like a digital version of a kid making cardboard pictures. Or construction paper pictures, the way it's like he's torn out mountains, and it's got a very ethereal feel to it. I want to use the word simplistic because I think when you just look at it and you don't put too much thought into it, it is simplistic. But once you start like breaking down the components of everything, especially like I said, the caveman and the roundish shapes and just the way that these figures present, it's not simplistic at all. There's a depth to it and an understanding of the way that it forms on the page that I think you have to have if you're going to make the juxtaposition between the style that the book is told in, that, again, the Rob Guillory-esque look to it, and then to go back to this more elemental formation of it.
Well, at this point, we haven't seen any kaiju live in the book.
Right.
This is all memories, so I have to assume it's his way of distincting that it's storytelling versus what's actually happening. But,
absolutely. I'm ready to see what he does with live kaiju. I want to see what these things look like in that style. So again, I could not wait to put this on my pull list. It's there. I love this. Big fan of Rembrew. From what we're getting here,
I've never read a book with Rembrew as far as I'm aware, but he certainly sold me on this book.
Yeah, it's super fun. So check this out from Aftershock Comics. Just well done all around. I love when we get these things that surprise us. That reminds me of the fun of comics before we did this thing where we all, we read Previews magazine every month. We stay on top of the things on the internet. We talk about these books every week. We kind of have a feel for what's happening in the world of comics. you get stuff like this, and it reminds me of being a kid and not knowing of anything about the book I was going to pick up at Walden Books and take home. And it reminds me why I love this medium and why I love this hobby.
In fairness, we were having a hard time deciding what book to get this week, and it was one that we could all decide on. But luckily, it turned out to be a pleasant surprise for all of us.
Yeah.
Love it when that happens. It just makes it fun. It makes it fun all around. Any final thoughts on the book before we kind of get away?
No.
You guys good?
Yep, I'm good.
Feel good? Well, I would love to hear about some things. And judging by what I'm seeing on the table, you guys read some stuff that I have not read. So I'm excited to hear about that. So why don't you tell me some stuff that you read this week? Talk about a book.
So I'm going to stay in the Aftershock market here. Midnight Rose. It's a one-shot by Jim Starlin, Nicole. I'm going to say it's probably Hellenic, but it's spelled Jelenic. DC Alonso, and once again, Dave Sharp's on it.
Nice.
Before I start on this, I do want to address the price point. It was a $9 book.
This is the book you were telling me about. Okay.
Yeah. I went ahead and picked it up. It's 42 pages. So, you kind of get your money's worth, and it's a Jim Starlin book. So I thought, I'm going to give this a shot. So this story is about a kid that when she's born, her mother dies during birth, but it's not just that she dies giving birth, it's the fact that the afterbirth is a bunch of vines coming out of her. And she just became a side note in the Journal of Medicine.
That seems unhealthy.
It was unhealthy. It killed her. And so this little girl...
That's the ultimate unhealthy, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how much unhealthier it can be.
Yeah.
So this girl is put in the Texas state orphanage system where she is raised by different people. She says she lost count of the number of homes she lived in. And eventually, due to funding, she gets transferred to Arkansas, where she's taken in by a very, very
Hey, I know that
Arkansas
guy. I know that guy.
type family. She says the mom was always drugged out on something. She never did figure out what it was. So she says, I wouldn't exactly label them as role models. They're very stereotypical hillbilly family. Mm-hmm. They're off the grid. They're living off the money that they're getting for having these foster kids.
Let me interrupt for a second. Does it specify a town?
It does not. Damn. It just says into Arkansas.
I was hoping he made up a town.
It does say they lived in the Ozarks.
I was going to say, this feels very northeast Arkansas. Sorry for our northeast Arkansas
well,
listeners.
The Ozarks would be northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Where's Crowley's? Yeah, but Crowley's Ridge, that whole Crowley's Ridge area is...
kind of covers most of the northern, but the
is that
Ozarks,
not part of the Ozarks?
is...
Yeah,
is generally related to Northwest.
We're going to get super geographically nerdy here about an area nobody cares about.
That's true.
If this keeps going.
There's hills. There's hills in the north, y'all.
So basically, this poor little girl is put in this house with 4 older foster brothers who, it just says abuse her. It's never says rape. It doesn't, but they push her around quite a bit.
Yeah.
And one day she has had enough and she fights back, which of course causes them to cut off her hair and beat the hell out of her. And so she goes back home that night. She waits till they're all asleep with her foster parents not giving a shit. They just go to bed and leave her out in the woods because, as long as they get their money, they're fine. Well, she goes in and she grows vines up all over the windows and then lights the house on fire because her idiot parents left a kerosene lamp going in the... They didn't. She lit it and lit the vines on fire that she grew in the house. And so, of course the police say, lucky for you that you escaped. Well, then it fast forwards to... So this book travels throughout her life.
Yeah.
Different periods of her life. moving forward to where she falls in love with a dude that he's really charismatic. She should know better because, she loves flowers. And on the first time he comes over, he brings her carnations and not roses. And carnations, everybody should know, are for friends and not lovers. But she lets it go. Well, as most charismatic people, as she puts it, are, he's a lying cheater. So she ends up turning him into a plant. Well, the police are on to her because 19 different people that she's been with have all disappeared.
Yeah, it seems like you're leaving
It
a
took
trail
19.
there. Yeah.
19.
This is random plantings.
So the police go to her house and they find the flowers that the dude turned into.
Yeah.
And of course they run every test on it. And the police officer's like, the detective's like, we found his DNA on the flower. She said, oh, on the flowers? She said, you have no idea what you're messing with here. And he's like, oh, I think I do. Well, she causes the tree to attack the police station. And it kills everybody in the police station. So now she's on the run. And she, of course, has to, after 9/11, you have to have an ID for everything. So it's not as easy to be on the run as she thought it would be. So she finds somebody that has died recently.
A little identity theft.
And breaks into their mom's house.
Oh, that's not good.
The old woman is fine with her having her daughter's identity because in some weird way that means her daughter's still living. So, but she makes a promise to the old woman that she'll try and be a better person because the old woman makes her tell her story to get the ID and so on. And, kind of a, hey, I'll be a motherly figure to you type thing. So she then is hitchhiking and gets picked up by a dude who has no idea what he's fucking with, but he keeps killing and raping women out in the middle of the desert. Well, he waits for her to fall asleep. He pulls off the road and she just laughs and says, yeah, you don't really know what you're fucking with. And she leaves him hanging on the side of the road, dead, strangled by a tree. So, this is just a pattern that she follows. And she's really upset that she had to kill that dude because she promised the old lady she was going to be a better person. But, dude had to die. So.
Was his name Earl?
Yeah. So next step, she falls in love and finally gets married. And everything's going great till one day when her extremely rich husband comes home and he tells her that he had to do some shady dealings in the past and to cover a bad, hedge fund he did. And he's not proud of it. He replaced the money right away, but it was, So she goes and kills the dude that's trying to out him for all of this. And then they live their life as they would happily until he dies of a heart attack one day. And then she goes out into the woods and sits on a tree stump and becomes a tree. And later there's some dancing naked dryad women that are worshiping her treedom.
Just because.
A lot better probably than I explained it. It's really interesting. It's a fantastic kind of journey through this woman's life where she was abused as a child and didn't know any other way than to not be the victim again.
Yeah.
She had this power that prevented her from being the victim.
As you were telling me this, did you ever see the movie with Charlize Theron, Monster?
I never did watch it.
Fantastic movie.
It is good.
Lesbianism aside, there's a lot of things in this story that track, I think, just from your telling it, I haven't read it, but track with the plot of Monster. So it almost sounds like this was a mix of, maybe Jim Starlin had the inklings of a Poison Ivy story laying around somewhere, and then
it feels
mixed
very
it with
Poison
Monster.
Ivy.
Yeah.
Obviously with the controlling of plants and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It never explains why this happened to her, what genetic effect
I like
had,
that it doesn't, though.
other than there's a comet that flies over on the night that she's being born, so maybe attribute something to that.
Starlin.
It's Jim Starlin.
I was going to say there's
no
got to be a
telling.
cosmic element to it.
But it never really explains. But she evolves through the story, right? She goes from from being a victim, from her early child, birth, she loses her parents from there to being in a really bad orphanage system and foster care system, at least as portrayed in this book. I'm not saying that that's the way it is, because there's lots of good foster parents out there. From being abused in the system and having to defend herself and saying, I'm no longer going to be the victim, even if that means I have to be the bad guy.
Yeah, the victimizer.
Yeah. So, and she says that at some point. At some point, you have to change. Either you're going to be the victim or you're going to join the people that are the victim, that are creating victims. Yeah.
It's a really sad mindset, but I mean, like working tangent fields to people who see this stuff. I mean, that's the way they look at it. Like it is binary to them.
And so, so it continues on and it tells her story and how she evolves. She evolves because she has to. She goes from the psychotic Black Widow killer that kills every dude she dates rather than just break up with them. She kills them to, hey, I can be a better person. I promised this lady that if she'd give me her daughter's identity, I would be a better person. And, she only takes out 2 more people, after killing.
It's a slow decline.
I mean, considering the pace she was on in her early 20s,
She only takes out 2.
You got to land that plane. You got to do it gradually.
I mean, the one guy was a rapist murderer, and the other one was blackmailing her husband. So,
I didn't pick this up just because of the price point and everything, but it sounds like it's a fun story.
It was a good story. I was glad I read it. Again, the price point is there. It's high, but you are getting 42 pages, so about not quite double what you normally get, but for double the price really. So, it's just a matter if Jim Starlin's names is enough to draw you to the book or not.
Well, so the last thing of Jim Starlin that I read was like the last Infinity book that he did, and I picked it up just because I've read all like Infinity War, Infinity Saga, Infinity this, Infinity Grocery List, whatever he has, and it was just it was really stale. So it just and so he's not
let that slide.
I would assume that would be a little stale. Infinity Grocery List.
Yeah, and so maybe it's just he needed to dabble in something else in it because it sounds like it was a very fun and
it could have been a couple story. You could have done like 3 or 4 issues and broke it out as opposed to a one shot. But then you would have paid $20 for it instead of 9. So you could have broken it into different phases of her life.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was well worth the read. Only you can determine if that price point's too much for you or not. So we'll not presume to tell people how to spend their money.
Unless you want to give it to us. Nice. Aftershock, man. Firing on all cylinders. They're a fun little publisher. Matt, looks like something you've got brand new. Something shining, fresh off the presses to talk about.
You think so, huh? You're incorrect.
He went dollar bid diving.
Yeah. This is from the 1993 year. Savage Dragon versus the Savage Megaton Man. Megaton Man, however you want to pronounce it. From Image Comics. So, Megaton Man is a character created by Don Simpson. Mm-hmm. This is a character that is a satire of the superhero genre. Kind of like The Tick, Ben Udlin's The Tick.
And he almost looks satirical of The Tick.
Yeah.
It's a satirical take on The Tick. Even though The Tick himself is satire of...
So this, I picked this up again, as I was dollar bin diving. This is a book I'd always kind of heard of. Never read it. I wasn't a regular reader of Savage Dragon back in the day. Certainly not now. But I like the old Savage Dragon books.
Yeah.
When the book first started, and a lot of it really holds up. Of course, this was written, penciled, inked, and created. This for Megaton Man was by Don Simpson, and then of course Savage Dragon was written, penciled, and inked by Eric Larson. And the story here is that, of course, Savage Dragon is a cop. Mm-hmm. And Megaton Man is transported into Chicago, where Savage Dragon is a cop. And he's dropped into the Image universe. Him being a parody of the superhero genre, this is more or less a comedy take on it. So Eric Larson course, if you listen to him talk, he doesn't take the superhero genre too seriously.
No.
And he does these. He does these crossovers with characters that are satires. He did a crossover with the martial law, for example, which is not a satire of the superhero genre. It is a brutalization of the superhero genre. And Eric Larson's like, yep, let's do it. Bring it in. So I really like Eric Larson for that reason, is him not taking the whole thing too seriously. He just has fun with it. It's really fun to listen to him talk about Batman, by the way. If you ever listen to him, Eric Larson's take on Batman, it's comical.
Kind of a quick funny story about him is I saw him at a local con he was at one time.
Yeah.
I was wearing a t-shirt I bought off of a rack somewhere, and it was Superman and it had 10 cents on it. And he goes, that shirt doesn't make any sense. I'm like, how so? He goes, that's not the costume he was wearing when it was 10-cent Superman. And I thought, okay, fair. I said, I think I bought that t-shirt at Old Navy.
That's funny. So there's a couple of moments in this book. The first opening page, there's a 2-page spread, a great 2-page spread of Savage Dragon fighting a group of superpowered ne'er-do-wells, calling themselves the Johnny Redbeard's Next Men.
That's funny.
Okay, so this harkens to the rivalry that Eric Larson has with John Byrne. Yeah. John Byrne, of course, back in the Image Comics debut days, was highly critical of the Image Comics crew. Mm-hmm. He didn't understand why they didn't want to be corporate cogs, as he called it, and why they had to go off and do their own thing, and did nothing but criticize them for it. Fucking bizarre. Why anybody would be such a dick for no reason whatsoever. It's beyond me.
That tracks with John Byrne's personality, though.
So, this opening page is nothing but Eric Larson cutting, in wrestling parlance, a promo on John Byrne, and it's amazing.
Is he spitting?
Oh my gosh, it is amazing. Savage Dragon shows up and basically says, you're under arrest. And then these Next Men start spouting dialogue such as, up yours, pig, we do as our recreator did. Destroy our surroundings in the name of change, and we don't care who we hurt. I mean, our weakened condition as a result of our senseless revamping. It's brutal, man. We are but a few of the many projects begun and abandoned by the almighty creative force of Johnny Redbeard. He gifted many of us with poorly conceived and useless powers. My new powers keep me clothed forever clean, but I repel soap as well as dirt. Ultimately, my stench drove him away.
Have you ever seen The League? The show The League?
Yeah.
All I heard when you said that was Ruxin going, forever unclean.
Oh, man. It's brutal. Oh, my
that's
God.
pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
No, whenever Larson wants to cut somebody down, he's good at it. That man is skilled in talking shit. Very skilled.
Yeah.
He can break somebody down in a heartbeat. Now, I don't always agree with him when he does it, but he's very talented at it. It's just...
So, the story jumps to, in Eric Larson did, the artwork for his universe in this book, and Don Simpson did the artwork for his universe in this book. So, which is cool, but man, that must be a hell of a challenge to make a book like this.
Yeah.
It sounds reminiscent of the early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I feel like you would need a really good editor to be able to pull that off between those two figures, just to know how everything lays out on the page and shares that space.
Yeah.
Very well plotted.
Yeah.
Here's something funny. Edited by Name Withheld. So I thought that was pretty fun. Yeah. Yeah. So Megaton Man shows up, and of course they immediately, before they start fighting, Megaton Man observes his surroundings, and he realizes where he is. And he says, woo, the Image universe, and I'm the first mega hero from my neck of the woods to set foot in it. But what dangers lie in store? What challenges, what thrills await me? And more importantly, will I suddenly be inked by some newfangled crosshatch manner? Excellent. So excellent. So, of course, there's a misunderstanding, and Savage Dragon and Megaton Man start fighting.
I wonder if that was a shot at Brian Hitch.
I'm sorry?
I wonder if that was a shot at Brian Hitch.
It's a shot at cross-hatching that everybody did in the image. Everybody did cross-hatching back in the day.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, you want to see some cross-hatching, some useless, absolutely absurd cross-hatching. Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but the cross-hatching that guy did
you don't have to apologize.
It's bizarre. I just, beating up on Liefeld is cliche, but I'm sorry, man.
Yep.
That cross-hatching. So, fisticuffs ensue, and then suddenly Megaton Man says, wait a minute. When in Rome, do as the Romans, and when in the Image universe, get extreme. So he breaks into a nearby gun shop called Big Guns, and he comes out fully adorned in the biggest, most ridiculous guns there are, guns with multi-barrels, and he has a rocket strapped to his back for some reason. And, of course, he just comes out and just starts shooting aimlessly. Doesn't know where anybody is, let alone Savage Dragon.
Did his costume change too, or does it always have that?
His costume changed to an extreme, more extreme, deadly.
He's the Punisher.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, so they keep fighting. Then all of a sudden, Megaton Man realizes that Savage Dragon is bleeding from the mouth. And he's like, oh, my goodness. I actually hurt you. And he's taken aback by that. So the fight ends up, the fight ends and they continue on and actually work together against the common threat that the whole reason Megaton Man came to the Image universe to begin with. So it wraps up nice and neatly and it's fun.
What was the common threat?
It is a character from the Megaton universe that makes his way into the Megaton Man was chasing the Slag Heap is the villain's name. So they get together and dispel with the slag.
But, it's not like there was better.
No, it's funny on purpose.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's not,
Yeah, you're supposed to laugh at this. It's funny on purpose.
It's meta commentary. I mean, I appreciate it for what it is. Absolutely.
So I picked that up, again, not really having any expectations other than I'd heard about it for a long time. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate Eric Larson bringing that in and letting Don Simpson, beat up on the Image universe at the time. And of course, this is the time when it was at its height of popularity. I mean, Image universe is bringing in all the money and they couldn't do any wrong. So, it's funny for, all the criticism that they were getting at the time. Eric Larson just brought it in house, that he has the confidence and the guts to do that, not get super crybaby and defensive about it.
He has a very interesting relationship with self-awareness, and he always has.
Yeah.
So, so sometimes it's there and it's very obvious, and other times he just doesn't. He lacks any pretense of it. It goes from polar opposites.
Yeah.
Fun stuff, man.
Yeah,
I like it.
It was a fun read.
Just makes you feel all. Did it take you? So as far as did it take you back to that era, or did you appreciate it as you're reading it now with the benefit of hindsight?
So that's the thing about. So here's the thing about reading Savage Dragon for me. It lacks the nostalgia factor that a lot of those other books do have, because the other books are very of their time, and Savage Dragon feels less of its time than any of them, frankly, because it's not what the other books are. If you go back and you read Wildcats, or try to, if you go back and and you read Cyber Force, all that stuff feels 90s and it's so of its time. This doesn't feel that way, and Savage Dragon never felt that way to me. If Savage Dragon was something totally different, Spawn was kind of that way too.
That's interesting though, because Eric Larson was he was the older figure in that group that branched out. Like he wasn't one of the quote unquote young guns in the same way that Rob, in the same way that any of the rest of. I mean, him and Whilce Portacio were always the outliers. It felt like.
Well, that's because Whilce didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, that too. But it always felt like. I think the legend goes when those guys, Eric Larson wasn't part of that conversation when Todd got together with Jim and all the rest of them. He was just at the bar when they were having that conversation, and him and Jim Valentino were just kind of there hanging out. They're like, yeah, we'll do it too. like they weren't part of that in group, and then they just latched on right time, right place kind of thing is what the legend sounds like to me. And so I think that's why, though, they just because they have a different sensibility.
Jim Valentino was the old man of the group.
Yeah,
he had a history, and he had a history of independent comics.
Yeah.
So he was brought in because he had experience in being in that world. But yeah, it's fun, man, and I still say the Savage Dragon stuff. You go back and read it, it holds up better than any of the other stuff I can think of.
So I saw you mentioned Cyberforce. I saw where they're reissuing a collected edition of that. Like you can get a compendium, or I don't know if they're calling it an omnibus or whatever. I want it just because I like that stuff. Like, or at least I like the memory, that nostalgia factor for me. The Darkness, Witchblade, Cyberforce, all of that was my cuppa back in the day. So, speaking of my cuppa, I am on record and continue to dearly, dearly love Project Superpowers. Taking these characters that are just that Alex Ross brought in and made a team out of, like, and created this universe with from way back in the day. These kind of golden age, open opportunity characters, super fun. Always enjoyed that, and so Dynamite continues to put out every once in a while new books. Not always great, but depending on who you get writing them and who you get drawing them, they can be really fun adventures. Again, like, there is this golden age pastiche element of them, and some of these characters were, in fact, they are golden age characters. They're people who are in the public domain that they've been able to bring in and play with.
So Winnie the Pooh?
No, not yet. Although I can see him doing a team up with Bob. But the new book hit the shelf this past week, 2 weeks ago. My stack's kind of, so it's recent. Project Superpowered Fractured States. And again, when I saw this, I was like, okay, another Project Superpowers book. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to pick it up because I'm a mark for it. But this is written by Ron Mars and Andy Lanning. So that, like, Ron Mars, I really enjoy some of this, like, he's Ron Mars, man. Like, his stuff from the Green Lantern stuff from back in the day, some of my favorite works. I recognize the name of Andy Lanning, but I had to go do some, like, Google Foo to figure out where I knew him from. Dude's done a ton of work for Marvel, has done a ton of work for a bunch of people, but also did, what was that book that came out? It was an Avengers spinoff that had the pop-up on the cover back in the 90s, had Scarlet Witch, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but no one liked it, I think, but me. It was crazy, but he's got a lot of fun stories out there in the world. This book was drawn by an artist that I don't have a lot of familiarity with, Emilio Utrera, colors by Arthur Hesley, lettered by Tom Napolitano. Tom, out of the three of those, is the only person I recognize. It's Dynamite. They're going to pull stuff from everywhere. So this doesn't act like a standard Project Superhero or Superpowers book. It starts you off with a familiar character, but then it drops you into a whole new world. So when the book opens up, you've actually got the Flag, Jim Courtney, battling some mysterious shrouded figure on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And uncharacteristically, the Flag is getting his ass handed to him. I mean, he's just getting the beat down from, like, the dude has literally ripped the Flag from his costume and is just standing over him. It's like, hey, like, you're done. Your country's done. Democracy is done. You're tattered. You're broken. There's nothing left of you or this nation. And just drops a bomb on him. Like, and it goes black. And this is meant to, during this time, to be current. So I guess, like, as you're reading this, it's meant to be in the year 2022. But as the story picks back up again after, you've got a little break in the story where they throw some Dynamite, like a Vampirella ad in there and stuff, just to break up the pacing. It picks back up where you see this very unkempt, shaggy, unshaven, naked man in a bunker that looks like a storage, some type of, like, apocalypse bunker. And he doesn't know where he's at. He doesn't remember who he is. He doesn't know how he got there. Very amnesiac. And he just, like, he looks at himself in this porthole and sees a reflection. And he's just like, who the fuck am I? And you don't know if this is the Flag. You just don't know. And so he kind of opens up this is one of those, like, submarine type doors where they've got the big wheel on it that unlocks it. And as he opens it up, water just gushes in. Like, and it's this murky, ugly green, you can just almost smell it, swamp water looking shit. And so he has to, like, make his way and swim through, A, so he doesn't drown, but B, so he can get out. And where he emerges is in this decrepit, haunting, ugly, old, like, amusement park. I mean, there are, like this is, like, I don't know when terrifying became a theme for theme parks, but this is apparently what it is. Like, there's a fanged octopus ride, and there's a giant skull with devil horns and mouth gaping open. And he's like, what is this place, or what did it used to be? And he really doesn't have time to figure out what's going on. He's got to find food. He needs to find clothes. He has these basic sensibilities about him. He knows that he has to meet, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, man. He needs these things to survive. So as he goes to like kind of walk around and catch his bearings, you start seeing the water ripple behind him. And out of nowhere, this giant, mutated, just nasty-looking crocodilian-esque creature just blasts out of the water and just comes after him. I mean, smacks the shit out of homeboy. Look, it's never good to get attacked by a crocodilian creature when you're naked, number one. That just seems like a bad idea. You might want steel-toed boots for that sort of thing.
Crocodilian creature.
It's just like, this dude just woke up in this world. He's like, what is happening? What is going on? Where did this, none of this was supposed to happen. And he's about to, he's on death's door, right? Like, he's just prepared to meet his maker, when all of a sudden bullets just riddle through this big scaly sumbitch. And he is just like, he looks over and all he sees is this emerging from like the darkness, this figure with the skull and the crossbones. And he thinks it's his old pal Bob. He thinks it's Black Terror. And he has this flashback of the last time he remembers seeing Bob jumping from a plane, saying, "Wake up, sleepyhead! Fascism won't defeat itself." Like this very like World War II mentality. And as Black Terror jumps out of the airplane, but as the person kind of comes more clear and he can start to see who it is, it's actually a young woman, and she's with a team. Like, there's a whole group of them, and she says, "Well, I'm Bobby. I'm one of the Black Terrors." So in this world, and you find out that this is actually 2053. So this went from present time to like 30 years in the future. Everything has gone to hell. The reason this place is surrounded by water and stuff is because global warming, melted ice caps, like there's now irradiated creatures running around. Like, he got woken up 30 years later and everything has gone wrong. Like, it literally is swamp, and all the rich people managed to get to like floating cities and high ground. Like, Jeff Bezos and that dipshit who stole Tesla just created like all these little fun high-tech cities, and that's where they have escaped to, and they've got their own police force and just murdering anybody who gets close to them. And the Black Terrors have formed this group to fight back against that. And they this creature that jumped out of the water was apparently a metagator, and they're like, well, like glad we got here when we did, dude. You were going to be toast. So like, this is not the right part of Florida to be in. And he was like, well, what happened to Florida? And I mean, if you look at Florida now, you kind of understand how Florida gets this way. Sorry, Floridans. But they get on these hover ships, and they're getting out of Dodge when all of a sudden these spotlights hit them. And it's these attack helicopters that are presumably from this city, right? And they're just like, hey, like, we caught you, and we're going to release the F troops. Which, if you've read Project Superpowers, the F troops are these Frankenstein-esque looking creatures that have been created. They're old school, so it's great to see them thrown back in here. And they land, and there's very much a Rob Guillory sensibility to the way these things are drawn. It's really funny looking and fun. And so they jump down, and they're just taking apart these this SWAT team. And Bobby has to explain kind of what's happening, and there's nowhere to run. And like these folks are cornered when all of a sudden our dude who woke up, that we don't know who it is. I mean, you can kind of speculate, but you don't know who it is. Rockets out of the boat like a comet and just smokes through these helicopters. And he has no idea how he did that. Like, these powers just manifested and saved the day for him. And they're going to be able to get out and kind of figure out where they're at. But shocked the hell out of the Black Terrors. They thought they were done for. And, Bobby was just like, man, I'm sorry we found you just in time to die together. But so issue 2 is going to come up. We're going to kind of get a better picture of maybe who this amnesiac figure is. Maybe we know, at least I don't think it's going to be Bob. Like, it's not, even though he is a dark-haired figure, he has these memories of seeing Black Terror jump out of a plane. So maybe it's the Flag. I don't know. Who could this character be? I'm very interested to see this future version of the Project Superpowers characters. I love these guys. Thought it was really cool. Ron and company, they know the history of this. Like, they leave you little tidbits and little Easter eggs, because it's Easter Sunday. Throw that in there. Like, the park that he wakes up in is called Walter Ruins. That's the part of the I guess Florida that they're in. Walter, if you know the story, is Walt Walters. He was the Black Owl. and he had 2 sons. He had the most unfortunate naming of children ever. Rick Walters and Dick Walters, who also became superpowers in their own right, and they were Yank and Doodle. Now, how would you like to be a guy named Dick whose superpower name is Yank or Doodle? It doesn't matter which one it is.
Especially Yank.
It is not a...
Dick Yank?
Yeah, Dick Doodle.
Not an accident.
The ridiculousness of it, like you said, is purposely done. I really enjoyed it. So go grab this book and go back and read the Project Superpower stuff if you never have. It is a really cool adventure. I love these characters. It is... At the end of the day, anytime you get to see Nazis getting punched, whether they're fictional, realistic, no matter what kind of thing they're talking about, which is a lot of what this is, fighting fascism, it's super cool. Ron Mars and Andy Lanning did a great job. Again, for not having any familiarity with the art, it fits in perfect with some of the history of the art. Great inking. Not a lot of... You don't always get that from Dynamite. They actually found a really, really great artist who has... I think nostalgic sensibilities for the way that this is drawn, but also gives you enough of the cartooning. Like I said, when he draws the Medicator, when he draws the F Troops, like it has that Guillory-esque just cartooning and kind of just lightheartedness to it that really will make you chuckle. So go pick this up. Coloring's excellent. Did a fantastic job altogether. I would love to buy some of these pages, especially in the theme park, because they are just like they look like they're pulled out of Erie and like. That's just good visuals. And I'll post these on our Instagram feed later on. So go check this out if you haven't. Just had a great time reading it.
Nice.
So sweet. I can't recommend it enough. But speaking of recommendations, next week stuff is going to come out. And we are going to have a fun time with it. We're always curious to see what you guys are interested in. I'm speaking directly to our listeners, but I'm also always curious to know what my brethren here are going to pull off the shelf. So
I have a couple of choices, so you guys can go
okay.
first.
I will do so. Matt, tell me what you're going to grab this next week, brother.
So from Marvel, Wolverine number 20, Benjamin Piercy, Javier Fernandez, and Adam Kubert just does the cover. But this one... we have a guest appearance by Deadpool.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see how Benjamin Piercy writes Deadpool, specifically Deadpool and Wolverine working together. Every time I've read something where they're together, almost always I really enjoy it because it's kind of like the Kid Omega pairing.
Yeah.
You have a, comic relief character, somewhat silly character with the very serious Wolverine who has no time for it. And it's hilarious to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing these two characters together and how Benjamin Piercy does it.
There's a lot of Benjamin Piercy I'm interested in, but that's beside the point. Over at the Distinguished Competition, from Catwoman or from
from Catwoman.
Yeah, from Catwoman. I got tongue tied. I'm sorry. From amazing artist and apparently amazing writer, and I didn't know this about him until this series. Catwoman Lonely City number 3 is coming out. This is an oversized, I don't know how many issues are going to be. Cliff Chang could draw just whatever he wanted to, like the Food Network menu, and I'd pick it up. But the man can write like a bastard, and it's like I didn't know he could do that. It is a fun, really fun book. Stunning. It will keep you on your toes. It is entertaining. The legacy that he is giving Selena, or that he plays with, is just wild. So dude needs to definitely write more stuff. So pick up Catwoman Lonely City number 3, and if you missed the boat on it, grab the first 2 while you're at it, because it will treat you the right kind of way.
All right. So mine is from Dynamite Entertainment, and it's Chuck Brown and George Kimbatis, I think is how you say his name, and Jonathan Case are doing a new John Carter of Mars. But this is a different take on it than we've heard before. This is in the year 1919. An asteroid hits Earth, and when it does, it causes a melding of Mars and Earth to happen on Earth. So you get the Martians coming to Earth and Earth people going to Mars. So you get this kind of mixture as opposed to...
I don't see any conflict in that.
No problem at all. It says that John Carter ends up fighting Martian apes in Virginia. So that's the first issue.
Huh.
So should be interesting because if you've read or watched the movie, he gets his powers because he's a human on Mars.
Yeah.
And he's used to Earth gravity versus Mars gravity, so he's much stronger on Mars than he would be on Earth. So
I feel like that movie gets a bad shake, man.
that movie
like
gets
that movie.
a really bad shake.
I really enjoy that
film. It's a much better movie than people give it credit for.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I think most people now would agree with that. I don't know why it got so much crap when it came out, but it's a good movie.
Well, I mean, I never heard anybody bust on the quality of the movie. All everybody talked about was that it was a box office bust.
Yeah.
That's all anybody ever said. I never heard anybody say I watched it and hated it.
Okay.
Okay. That might be
Maybe
what it
that's
is.
fair.
There was just a general disinterest in it, I think, and I never understood.
Well, there was no build up to the movie at all. It was a very expensive movie to make, and it was just kind of dumped. And it doesn't. I mean, John Carter of Mars just doesn't have mass appeal. I mean, going into it,
right?
It's just a property does not have mass appeal. So
you've got to build it up.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to make this appealing to a broad audience for it to be successful, and it was a marketing
Disney
fail.
Movie to not market it well.
Yeah, it was just
I mean, I don't know. Judging by some of the stuff that Disney's done lately, their marketing department might need.
And they've done that throughout their history.
Yeah.
They've released stuff throughout their history where it's been a bust.
Yeah,
and things that people call classics today were a financial bust for them.
Yeah,
fair.
Well, all right. Well, those are good books all around. Well, gentlemen, are we ready to just kind of put a cap on this thing?
I think so.
Well, let's do it. Well, folks, we really hope you enjoyed this. As you can tell from the giddiness in our voices, we really enjoyed it. There are very few things that make me happier than sitting at this table and having coffee with my brothers. It just makes me feel like all is right in the world. And we hope your world is right, too. It is Easter Sunday. It is Passover. It is several other holidays all wrapped up into one. So if you're celebrating this weekend, have fun. Go spend time with your families and appreciate your loved ones. If you're just hanging out on the weekend, still go hang time with your families. Appreciate your loved ones. We hope you have a fantastic time. If you want more of this, you want to be part of our little community that we've built up, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're on the Insta and the Twitter, we're at SFG Podcast on both of those. Tag us in what you're reading. Tag us in your thoughts. We would love to hear from you. If you want to experience more, maybe you want to send us an email. You're not on social media, or you've done something cool that you want to share with us, shoot us an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. And if you have sent us an email and I haven't got back to you, I'm very, very busy, and I promise I will. I'm trying to make things work. We have had some independent creators reach out wanting to tell us about their books. I need to line that up. Remind me, and I will shoot you guys, as I'm looking at my co-hosts, an email, because I need to do my due diligence on that and make that happen, because we said we would. Other than that, I got nothing else, man. Looking forward to next week's comics. We will be back at the same time, same place. Shout out to all of our friends who are telling us what they love. And if you don't have anything better to do, go forth and love some comics.
Word.
I like that that's become our end cap.
Just it's timeless.
It gets drawn out a little bit longer each time. Like eventually there's going to be like
4 R's, 6 R's.